All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today, uh, Jimmy, I'm totally out of 105. This is 105 episodes of this that we've done now. I I've interviewed some pretty awesome people, but I've really been looking forward to this. And you and I, we this is our first time ever talking. And so, first of all, welcome and thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation today, man.
Yeah, man, glad to be here. Stoked to be here.
Yeah. So I got to give a little bit of background here because you and I were not, well, I mean, we have some mutual friends for sure. We got some amazing mutual friends, but we were not formally introduced by any of our mutual friends. I'm just going to tell the story of how this happened because I was sitting at home one night. It was a quiet night at home. My wife and children were out of the house. I don't remember why they were out of the house or what, but it was like it was weird because it's never like this at my house. With 7 kids, you don't have it that way very often. so I was sitting on the couch scrolling Facebook, and I saw this post about from Joel Irway, our mutual friend, and he was talking
Yep.
about being on this plane, and the guy was like trying to get his attention, and Joel's kind of a introvert and stuff. He's like, look, if I'm busy with my headphones on, I
Mhm.
don't want to talk. And so he got some engagement going, and some guy made some, I don't know, just really serious comment. And then you came in right behind. You just lost a light or something there. I saw that.
Yeah, you did.
And you come in right behind and make this. You know what? I didn't know we were going to have a cool light show going on here, but that's totally cool, man.
I literally think my key light bulb just made a hissing sound. I literally think it just went out. That's
Nice.
amazing.
Nice. So then
Cool.
you made this snarky, funny comment, and I'm like, who is this guy, man? And so then I click through and go to your Facebook feed, and I spend the next hour browsing your Facebook feed, seeing some of the articles you've written and stuff. And then I found this video of you like you I don't even know what the context was, but you're walking upstairs in your house and then you see this look on your face, and then all of a sudden you turn to your cell phone or whatever, and you're like, oh, nice. My dog just shit on my floor. That's
Yeah.
great. And I am just dying laughing. and and so then I commented back on Joel's post and talking about how, man, I just spent the last hour browsing your Facebook feed all because of this snarky comment. And now here we are. And like I said, I mean, without ever having met you in person before, Jimmy, I can tell that you have this amazing gift, that you are in just like complete alignment with who you are doing, using your unique ability in this world to make a big difference, make a big impact. And you're somebody who values relationships. And so
Yep.
I am really excited to have this conversation with you. And so what I want to do is just kind of start by turning it over to you to let you share a little bit of your background, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you to do what you do, and just kind of let everybody know, like, who is Jimmy Perrin and what are you all about, man?
Yeah, so I'm a classically trained ADHD, which means I probably had about 18, 19 jobs up to this point. And it probably wasn't it probably wasn't until about 5-ish years ago when I stumbled into the world of copywriting, which is a segment of advertising where I'm writing things like YouTube scripts, sales pages, emails, basically salesmanship in print. Okay, and that's been cool. That's been fun. I've been around the block. I've worked with companies like Agora Financial. I've worked with big precious metals companies. And it wasn't until probably recently where I discovered, hey, I can actually combine my unique ability, as you call it, of humor and combine that with sales, which in the world of advertising, it's always been said, don't do that. Don't use humor in copywriting. Don't use humor in advertising because you're probably going to offend people. It usually doesn't work, and it's true. The way most people do it, it absolutely doesn't work. For some reason, I can make it work, and right now I have a hit rate of 100% of the ads that I've written have worked and have been scaling to some degree, and so yeah, that's kind of the 80-20 version of
Yep.
who I am and how I got here.
Yeah, and in doing that browsing that I was doing that night, I got to read some of those ads, and I'm just like, man, talk about engaging. I mean, even if you're not in the market for what's being sold, who cares? It's entertainment. I mean, I've never seen that before, you know, and so it's yeah, you definitely have a gift for sure. And it was, and so okay, so now that we've kind of got a little bit of context set here and stuff, let's switch gears. I'm
Yeah.
going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners.
Okay.
Have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person? And Jimmy, I'm really excited to hear your story and your experience around this.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer is no. I did this all on my own. I had no relationships whatsoever. Yeah, podcast over.
That's right. All
Yeah,
right, we're done.
we're gonna go ahead and throw 105 in the bin. No, it was, one of the best pieces of advice I got years and years ago from one of my first jobs. It says it's not about what you know, and it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. And so that there's some prerequisites there. You have to know what you're doing, right? And you have to know who you should be connecting with in the first place, but they also have to know who you are, right? Like, hey, I feel like I'm pretty good at copywriting. I know Warren Buffett, so why aren't I working for him? Because he has no idea who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, and never mind the whole, like, I don't even know what I would do with him, and I have no interest in that, but just to make the point.
Sure.
And so that is what led me into the whole world of just get out and meet people, connect with them, no ulterior motives, not this, hey, great to meet you, how's business going today, and try and segue into like this awkward Facebook Messenger conversation. It's just, no, just like meet people, and if something happens to pop up organically, great. If not, doesn't matter. I'm there to make friends first, and so in doing so, that's how I've landed probably every single job I've ever had. And there's this one job that I got, it was a sales job. Okay. And this is going to connect into this person.
Sure.
Right. So I got the sales job, was working there for a while, and I started getting most of my sales through text message and through emails. I was like, you know what, people are, I don't even know why I'm getting on sales calls with these people. They're buying it. Just I'm an order taker,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, do I need to talk to him? And so I would just start texting him, hey, I know we got a call later. Do you have any questions, or were you ready to buy? They're like, oh no, I'm ready to buy. Cool. So I get on the phone, take their credit card number, and then call it a day. Same thing with email. Eventually, the director of marketing for this company set up a meeting with me. And I was like, I don't know why the marketing guy wants to talk to a sales guy. They're usually separate entities in professional organizations, total independent silos. And he says, hey, I saw a bunch of the emails that you're sending. I didn't know you were a copywriter. I was like, what's a copywriter? And I thought a copywriter, and I told him this. I was like, I thought a copywriter was, I don't know, some hipster with a curly mustache sitting in a coffee shop in Portland writing blog posts. And he's like, well, yeah, that's also a copywriter. He says, no, I'm thinking copywriter like a salesman copywriter. It's like, don't know what that is. He's like, do you want to maybe write more copy for us? It's like, well, let me think about it. So I go home that day, and on the way home, or sitting in the car in the parking lot, I had an hour and a half drive. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm looking up copywriting podcasts. And there's this one that popped up at the time. It was called Truth About Marketing. And it was with some guy I'd never heard of named Kevin Rogers. And Kevin Rogers was interviewing some other guy I never heard of named John Carlton. And I was like, oh, this episode just came out. Cool. So I'm listening to it, and they're talking about all this stuff that's like, I was just nodding my head yes the whole time. And by the end of that drive, I realized there's a whole world of people who think like me, and they're called copywriters. Like, this is great. This is perfect. And so John Carlton was promoting at the end of this podcast. He says, hey, I'm doing this program. I'll coach you in copywriting. And I said, you know what? I need to do this. I just felt compelled, right? This is something I need to do. And so I did that. I went onto the sales page, paid the money. And then through that, because it was through Kevin's podcast, I ended up getting like this free 6-month membership into his copywriter group called Copy Chief, and just met him through that. And we've been pretty close friends ever since then. Like almost every single significant gig I've gotten has been because of him, through him, or just being friends with him making connections with me. And we've done so many little projects together that were it not for having met Kevin specifically, because I could have landed on any podcast about copywriting.
Yeah.
I happened to land on that one.
Yep.
And so if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing where I am right now.
Yeah. Wow. So if we look at this, and this is really cool, because I'm not close friends with Kevin, although he probably knows of me. But I've known John for years. I met John, early on in my entrepreneur career through Joe Polish, who's a close friend of mine. That's how I met John and stuff. And so if we look at this relationship with you and Kevin, what are one or two substantial things that really stand out for you that you know for a fact would have never happened if not for this relationship that you and Kevin have?
So I wouldn't have gotten my first official copywriting job weren't for him. Okay, so when I stumbled into this world of copy and was writing copy for this one company, where I was doing sales, and then I kind of evolved into being a copywriter for them. I was there for probably about 5 months.
Okay.
Before someone reached out to me, said, "Hey, I've seen your emails around Kevin. Told me about you. Saw a bunch of your copy. Can we jump on a call? I'm interested in seeing if maybe there's, you can do some work with us." It's like, okay, cool. So I look up this guy's name, some guy named Joe Schriefer with some company called Agora Financial. And I'm like, I don't know. They seem like they've been around for a while. And so I asked Kevin, like, who are these guys? He's like, oh, they're just like, a small group of, one of the biggest financial publications in the world right now. No big deal. Just
Yeah.
I was like, okay, talk to him. I'm like, yeah, this sounds good. And then they flew me out to Baltimore. And then probably a month later, I was driving my family across the country from Arizona to Baltimore to get out there to actually start my copywriting career. And that was such an important job at that point, because one, I was getting copy mentorship and all that stuff, right? But there's so much credibility and doors open that come from saying that you've worked with a company like
absolutely
And it was like I was a newbie there, so like I didn't have any big significant wins or anything, and I had a lot of learning to do, but just the fact that I was there, that I existed in those doors, to a lot of people said, just told them a lot about me. And that alone opened doors for me. From there I went to work with a guy named Oren Klaff in California, in the venture capital world. He's the guy who wrote Pitch Anything.
Yep.
And worked with him for a little bit. And then from there, set off on my own and just been rocking ever since.
Wow. So for a guy like me, Jimmy, who personally places such a high value on relationships and has, just experienced so many things in my own life that have come as I hands down believe that as an entrepreneur, relationships are the most valuable asset we have. Everything comes from that. And
amen.
In doing this podcast, my goal was to, one, give people like yourself the opportunity to share your story, your experience, and honor people in your life that have had such a profound impact. And on the other side, for the listeners who are also, entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, to just inspire them to place an intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their lives. And man, that is pretty damn amazing. And I don't know, if you're listening to this and Agora doesn't mean anything to you, do a Google search and check it out, because it's kind of and Ohrenclaf is kind of a big deal too, and how just you deciding I'm gonna listen to this podcast, and then you meet Kevin, and then it's just the balls just starts rolling, and it just has continued to roll. And what's cool is I mean, you have just really stepped into this, just really, and you continue to just step into this, and which is what I saw on your Facebook feed, and which is what I was like, damn, I got to talk with this guy. I just want to get to know him better, because man, this guy is such alignment with who he is, and I just want to get to know him better. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to share this, because we definitely delivered on what I have set out to do with every episode of this podcast. And so for anybody listening to this, Jimmy, that's like, dang, I really like this Jimmy guy. I like the way he shows up. How can they find out more info? I mean, any resources that you can offer, anything like that?
Yeah, actually, if you go to jimmyparent.com, there's a link to, well, the YouTube channel that I've been kicking off, but also there's some links to some, a few articles I've done where it's like, hey, what does it look like to write funny ads? Why should I even do it at all? And to kind of briefly give my philosophy behind that, we're in the entertainment economy. If you're not entertaining, you're done. You're smoked, And so rather than trying to take your advertising and bolt on funny and trying to bolt on entertainment to your advertising, make entertainment first that happens to be advertising. And because it's going to get in front of more people, and even if it converts at half of what a raw advertisement would convert at, well, if you get 100 times more eyeballs on it, that you're going to get more sales, one, and plus you're actually going to build up your brand. If you look at your brand not as a logo or colors or anything like that, but rather I define brand as the personality of your business. And if you can really put the personality of your business out there, I mean, you get more business. So there's an infinite number of reasons why you should do it. But if you just want to get an idea of what that looks like, head over to jimmyparent.com. I got some pretty cool stuff to show you.
Very cool. Awesome. Any last thing you want to share, Jimmy, before we call it a wrap?
I really want to know, who is the most influential person you ever met?
So Joe Polish was my introduction to direct response marketing back in 1997. And so that has been 25 years ago. And Joe, everything in my life has come through that very first connection. And I met Joe because at the time I had a cleaning and restoration business that I had started the year prior in 1996, after working 7 years as a commercial fisherman in Alaska to save up money. And I'll tell you, I busted my ass to earn that money. And I promptly blew through $300,000 in the first year because I didn't have a clue what I was doing, man. And I saw this article from Joe in a trade magazine, and I'm like, man, I need some help. And so he was offering this free report. I requested that. I read that. It was, I don't know, it was probably like 24, 25 pages long. I requested his marketing kit from there, his marketing system. And just it just resonated with me. I started using it. I invested in his coaching, and we, over the next 3 years, we completely transformed that company into a buy referral only company. And there's a whole lot more that happened as a result of Joe. So I'll share a little bit because it does really directly tie into this whole thing of relationships. In 2000, I had gone to this seminar that this guy, Dan Kennedy, was putting on, and I met Dan through Joe. Dan had spoke at one of Joe's events. I invested in some stuff Dan was offering, got on Dan's newsletter, found out about this event.
In Dan, of course, being another up and comer in the world of marketing these
days.
Yeah,
he's another up and comer. Yeah. and went to this seminar of Dan's, and then I met these two guys, Yannick Silver and Perry Marshall, at that seminar, and that was in 1999. Was I met, and they were doing
some of the OGs.
Yeah, they were doing some kind of cool stuff on the internet, and I'm like, gosh, wouldn't it be cool if I could use the internet, to somehow do something for my business, so it wasn't just a local business, but man, that would be really cool to do something where I could have a nationwide or maybe even a worldwide reach. Wouldn't that be something? And so I ended up starting this website. There's remnants of it still there because ain't not a damn thing going on at that website, but it's still there. I just keep it there because it's getmoldsolutions.com, probably one of the ugliest websites ever on the internet. I claimed the title of the nation's mold solutions expert, which pissed a bunch of people off in that industry because they're like, who the heck do you think you are? But because of technology and what I learned how to do and how to build an email list, I ended up building an email list of about 19,000 people and stuff, where I was just talking about mold and water damage in a home and what to do about it. And we started selling info products and mold test kits and cleaning products and vacuums. And we got that website where it was producing like an extra between 15 and 20,000 a month in revenue for the business. And in 2003, Joe and I were talking, and he's like, why don't you come down here to the big annual event this year, which was like in October, and show everybody what you're doing with your website. And I'm like, all right, because he held a big annual event for the cleaning and restoration industry. And I'm like, all right, I'll do that. And he's like, and before you come here, he's like, make sure you document what you do and how you do it, because there's going to be a certain percentage of the people that, they're going to want your help with doing what you're talking about, and just make sure you're ready to give that to them. And so I ended up creating this course. And so November or October of that year, I went down. In fact, I called Joe's office the week before the event and talked with his secretary. And I'm like, okay, Joe had me, put together a presentation to share, and he had me create this course, and I'm going to offer it. But I was like, Eunice, I don't even know how this works or nothing. And Eunice is like, well, because Joe invested all the time and the money in marketing the event, usually if he lets anybody offer anything, he just does a 50-50 split with them on whatever revenue. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so long story short, I never spoke. That was the first time I ever spoke in public at all. And there was about 300 people there. And and Joe gave me this amazing introduction, but and as I'm standing on the side of the stage there, as he's introducing me, and I'm looking at all these people, I am like, I'm on pins and needles. I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
your stomach's in your throat.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know
if I want to do this, man. And then I'm like, shit.
Yeah. Where's the eject button? I need to abort.
Oh. It was, yeah. I mean, outside of jumping out of an airplane, that was the highest anxiety moment of my life, but once I took the stage and people, and thankfully it was a warm audience. There was a lot of people there who knew me,
Yeah.
And so within 5 minutes, I was like, they were liking it. They were like, yeah, man. And I'm like, oh, they're into this shit. And at the end of my presentation, which was about, 45, 50 minutes, I just said, hey, if this makes sense to you, if it resonates with you, if you think that I might be able to help you, I'd absolutely love the opportunity to do that. Here's what that looks like. Here's what the investment is. And damn, Jimmy, we sold $35,000 worth of that damn course that I just created. And I was like, whoa.
Hang on.
I was like, man, that's a whole lot more than I make running the dang cleaning business.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to do more of that.
Yeah.
And so we ended up selling the cleaning business April 19th of the following year, moved into that full time. Over the next 12 years, I sold $16.1 million worth of that training. I did almost 500 strategic partnerships. And what I didn't realize at the time with Joe and I that was my very first ever strategic partnership. And
Oh,
and so I got really good at doing strategic partnerships, to the point where like people was telling other people about me, and it just kept me going for that whole life of that business. And I also I got connected with so many amazing entrepreneurs that led to the work that I get to now do today, which is I am a connector and conduit of trust for all these amazing entrepreneurs. And I serve a small handful of them. I serve up to 40 at one time. That's kind of my cap and my limit. But I get to serve some pretty amazing entrepreneurs. I facilitate just high level relationships that are about so much more than revenue. It's about, because like what really motivates these entrepreneurs is like they know how to make money already. So talking to them about like, hey, let's do this thing and make all this money together, it ain't gonna register.
yeah.
But you talk about, hey, I can help you make a whole lot bigger impact in the world. Well, now you
Yeah.
get their attention. That's what
Changing
motivates.
lives, helping people, all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that is, so Joe, yeah, for sure, has been. I mean, everything stemmed from Joe, and that relationship is 25 years in the making now. And
That's
so
all. It sounds like through him, you've become the real life Pindar from The Go Giver.
yeah,
Yeah, being able to just become that super connector and yeah, serving people. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's a first. That's never happened on this podcast before, right? Where I took any time talking about me. So but you opened that door. So
I wanted to hear it. I needed to know.
yeah. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. And thanks for, just even asking I mean, that was cool. It's just kind of sharing that experience a little bit too and stuff.
That's awesome.
And I know the listeners will get value from this. And
Yes,
so
they will.
thanks again. And you have a great rest of your day, man.
All right, you too, brother.